welcome to this episode of the Smart Leader Sell podcast. I'm Jess, Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm really excited to share some of the secrets, I guess, around running a successful membership that actually retains members instead of losing them regularly and you having to recoup the revenue, and also make interesting content, have this recurring revenue model that works for you, that works for your customers, and actually that brings you joy in the least cheesy way of saying it. Not entirely sure there is a least cheesy way of saying that, but it's one of those things, in order to do anything in your business, especially if you're considering a new business model or implementing something different, you've got to make sure that it is something that's going to make you happy. So today I'm going to cover off the most important things I feel that are involved in running my membership and how it's become so successful in terms of the results that it gets for my members, and also in terms of, the retention rate, which is extremely high for the industry average. So let's kind of do a little bit of a recap of the week and then we will dig into the good stuff. So this week has been a bit of an interesting one. I'm actually pretty tired. At the recording of this episode, I have had my in-laws here for a long weekend and it was lovely. We went to the zoo, we went for tapas, we got very drunk most nights. The best kind of weekend. And we had a heat wave here in the UK. So it was actually the hottest bank holiday on record since 1974, which is lovely, but also meant that it's the hottest time of the year, so far. And actually, I don't know about anyone else, but it makes you feel super drained. Does anyone else feel like that? When the heat is there, you just feel really, really drained. And we were doing quite a lot of walking over the weekend. We'd trekked a couple of miles around the zoo and we'd been out for walks to the local country park and all that kind of thing. And so actually I was like, I'm pretty tuckered, if I'm honest. So it's been a long week for me. And I feel like it's taking its toll. I feel like I need another long weekend to recuperate from this one. But hey, let's roll with it. So when I sat down to record the podcast episode this morning, because it is only 9:33, I'm feeling pretty productive today. I'm feeling like I've got up, I've had my coffee, I'm ready to roll. Also feeling like my voice isn't in gear yet because I haven't done a bunch of calls. So if you're thinking, oh, Jess, you sound really odd, that is my sort of human voice, which means I've had coffee. That is fantastic. I'm feeling human, but also, there's that element of me where I haven't really talked to that many people today. So actually, haven't used the old voice box. But let's kind of dig in, because this is a really important thing for me. I see a ton of people out there who are buying into this idea that membership sites are the next big thing. And as somebody who has a membership site, I'm I feel a little bit hypocritical at saying, there are some instances in where a membership site is not the best model. It's really not the best model for your business or for you. But today I want to look openly and honestly at whether or not you should have a membership site. If you choose to have a membership site, what's the best way to run it? How can you fit it into your business model? How can you get the best results for your members, and how can you avoid making the big mistakes? Because I think what we tend to see in the online space is that everyone's like, yeah, get a membership and you can make 20 grand a month and it'll be super easy. And the thing that people tend to forget when they're talking about this, you can probably hear the smile in my voice, right? The thing that people tend to forget when they're talking about membership sites is that actually you are bringing, to get $20,000 or £20,000 a month, you actually bring an awful lot of people together at one time, which means you're having to create an awful lot of content, which means you're having to spend an awful lot of time answering questions, which means you're having to give an awful lot of support. So sometimes it can be just worth thinking about, okay, do I want a membership site or do I want a recurring revenue model? And the two are actually very, very different. So let me just run through a couple of ideas here, because when I was deciding that I wanted to set up a membership site, I looked at all the other options because I was like, membership site sounds like a lot of work. Inherently, I'm somebody who doesn't actually enjoy a lot of work. And, I've said on the podcast many times, I'm inherently a fairly lazy person. So when I implement something new into my business model, it's got to be something that fits around my life. And I was like, look, if I'm going to bring people into a membership, I want them to get results. I want it to be somewhere that people actually do well, because The other problem that our industry has is that in the online education space, there's typically about a 12% success rate, right? 12%, and that is low. So when I'm looking at my business model and I'm thinking, actually, my business has a 98% success rate in an industry that has a 12% success rate, there was no way I wanted to damage that with opening up a huge membership site that nobody ever did anything with, and so there was that concern for me. The other concern, the major concern I had was time, and I looked at membership sites that I was part of. I actually joined a whole bunch that I probably still need to cancel to see how other people ran them. And I was really disappointed. Okay, I'm going to put it out there, right? The standard for memberships is low. Gone are the days, I feel, where you can just chuck someone a login to a portal and, kind of hope that they can get through the material, and do it themselves and get everything done and it all be groovy gravy. And yet in the industry, that's what I was seeing. I was seeing all these people who'd brought in like 700, 800 people into a membership site, and then they just weren't showing up to support them anymore, right? They'd gone from the Facebook group. They were, putting out material into the portal, but there was nothing really there to support their members. There was nothing there that made them kind of feel like part of a community anymore, or part of a tribe. So I was pretty disappointed by how some of it had kind of panned out and how it was looking for people. Okay, so in total transparency, as I was recording this episode, my lovely, lovely PR lady, Amanda Reese, just called and started having a chat with me about some PR things. So if the editing sounds a little bit screwy, it's because the lovely Amanda called and I had to go and have a quick chat with her. But anyway, what we were talking about is obviously, how do you decide whether a membership site is going to be the right thing for you, and what should you be looking at? Because when I set up the Dotties, there was a lot that I was considering around time, around, how quickly will it grow? What will the retention rate be? And when we're talking about retention, that just means how long will people stay? I was looking at the industry average and it seemed like people would stay in a membership for 3 months and then leave. And so when I was doing the maths, I was like, well, if I'm having to replace like 10% of my members every 3 months, that's quite a lot of work. That's a lot of promotion, especially when you're in a model that is not going to make you the most money initially, right? So here's the caveat to membership sites. If you're going to start up a membership site, either have a large audience first, okay, that's the route I went down, or make it your primary business model. Okay, so if you look at some businesses like Screw the 9 to 5, their primary business model is their membership site, and that's all they've focused on growing over the last sort of few years. And that's why it's kind of got to the point where it is very, very large. FEA, so the Female Entrepreneurs Association with Carrie Green, is the same. That's her primary business model. Okay, so you can have a membership site if you have a small audience, but it does need to be your primary business model, and you do need to understand that it's not going to make you the most money initially, even if you're charging a premium price for your membership. Even if you're charging $100 a month for it, it's still not going to outweigh what you could earn on the high ticket side. So my honest and sage advice, Jess's words of wisdom, would be that if you are looking to make as much money as possible in the shortest time, a membership is not the way to do that. Okay, so if your focus immediately right now is cash flow, you need to be focusing on high ticket first. And then once your audience size has grown, you can get like 20, 30 people in there at a time. That's when you want to start a membership. Okay, but when I was obviously starting this membership, when I was really thinking about, okay, what is it that I want to do? It's one of those things that I think, okay, I could have a membership. I could have that as my recurring revenue, but what else could I have? And so I started having a look around, a little sneaky peek into the market, into, some of the biggest companies in the world and their models. And I was looking at, okay, well, what is it that big companies do to generate recurring revenue that I could potentially replicate? So one of the things that I'd always done in my business from day one was retainer support. So for when my one-to-one clients finished up with me, if they felt like they needed support, like a lower level of support, instead of having like 4 calls a month, they wanted 2 or something like that, we could put them on retainer so that they would have those calls there. And if they needed me, I was there to support them. They weren't completely on their own. And at the same time, that was generating this kind of recurring revenue, with the caveat that they could only have that for 3 months. And after 3 months, they either had to re-sign to a package or move on to something else, somebody else's coaching. So I'd always done retainer models, and I'd got that idea because I'd obviously, like everyone else on the planet, bought a computer. And when you buy a computer, they offer you like a year of support and you pay extra for it, right? So you pay extra for this year of support, and then every year they basically automatically renew it without telling you. And so I kind of thought, okay, what's the additional support I can be giving my clients? And that's how we came up with the retainers. So you can look at models like that. Okay, where can you be supporting your existing clients, and how can you be doing that so they feel really good about moving forward, independently, but also having you there in their back pocket if they need. The other recurring revenue streams that I looked at were things like subscription boxes, okay? And there are a couple of people who come out with some really, really good subscription boxes where you get books, where you get lots of different like little pieces that can be focused around health, around nutrition, around mental wellness. There are so many different areas now that people are building subscription boxes in. And that to me is really interesting. But turned out that, the only thing I'm actually that interested in is food. And I think that Graze was kind of dominating the area of the market that I would have taken, and stationery. And neither of those things were massively appealing to my ideal clients. So I ended up, kind of canning the subscription boxes idea. But, there are lots of things out that you can be doing that will generate this recurring revenue. You can have subscription boxes, you can have retainers, you can have paid for newsletters. There's a chap called Mark Mooney who is sending out, he's the founder of like the Secret Coach Club, and he sends out a print newsletter each month, and it's like $97 a month, and you get a newsletter effectively delivered to your door. So it doesn't mean that you have to have a membership site. And specifically, you don't have to have a membership site to charge a premium price in that industry. I mean, $97 for a print newsletter, it's not a small investment, right? Month to month. It's not something that people are going, oh yeah, I'll just continue with that because it really makes no impact. It's not like a gym membership or a 20 quid a month thing. It's a significant kind of investment for what is essentially a bit of paper on your doorstep. However, if you're somebody who's like, that's the best way I learn and the information I know is good and I really like, know and trust that person, then of course it's an investment that you want to make, right? And that you're prepared to make. The other thing that I considered, and I had a client who was really successful with, we implemented this strategy for her of paid webinars. And every single week she would do a paid webinar on the topic. And if you were a member, you could pay $100 a month. You could show up to every single webinar or watch the replays. And if you weren't a member, you would pay $50 just to attend one. Okay, so it made complete sense for her audience to do this, $100 a month and get to go to every single webinar. So you've really, really got to be thinking about, when you're looking at recurring revenue, do you really want a membership site? And if you do, great. Is it going to be a primary business model, or do you have an audience that's large enough to supplement it right now? And secondly, is it going to be worth the time and energy that you're going to want to put in? Okay, so just have a think about those things. It's not that I'm saying don't have a membership site. I just want people to be doing or running membership sites for the right reasons. I think we've made membership sites really popular and seem really lucrative in the online space over the last few years. And the reality is that there are a lot of work to set up. There are a lot of work to maintain. And actually, contrary to what's out on the sales pages for all these build your own membership site and make $1 million a month sales pages, actually it does take time. It takes a lot of energy and it takes a strategic process. So the process is what we're going to go through now. So you can kind of look at what's on the inside of my membership, how have I planned it out, and what could you do if you really are keen and set on, I'm going to have a membership site and it's going to be the best thing ever. So step one, when you're setting up a membership site, after you've decided, do I actually want one? Do I have the time for one? Am I prepared that my members will leave, that there will be an attrition rate? Am I happy about that? The answer is obviously no. Nobody's happy to have people leave, but it happens, and we have to deal with that in the best way for them. So once we've looked at all of that, the next stage is to look at, okay, how can I make my members win? All right. And this is the biggest thing for me. So when I went out and did all my crazy research on membership sites and on what worked really well and what didn't work well, The biggest thing that ground my gears like absolutely nobody's business was the fact that there was no way for members to win. Okay. The people setting them up had clearly thought, great, I'm going to charge $50 a month and people are going to keep paying it. And that's great. But when you actually went and looked at the content, it was so overwhelming. Like there was tons and tons and tons and tons of content. And there was really no understanding, no comprehension of how it had been thought out, of where you would start, how to self-identify what you needed first. And that was really terrifying for me because I was like, well, if I was new and if I didn't really know what I wanted from my business yet, would I just do all of this stuff and hope that something happened? Because, the first modules in some places were like SEO. And I was like, well, SEO is important. Yes, don't get me wrong, but it's not as important as money, right? In order for your business to function, you need to be making money. You need to know who your ideal clients are. You need to know how that cash is going to come in, not how to put the best meta tags on your website. So, there were lots of kind of discrepancies around how are people actually going to win from this membership? How is it going to be, obviously it's not going to be one-to-one coaching. It's not going to be a group program. People can't expect the kind of same level of transformation in the same time point as they would do if they were, in part of a mastermind or one-on-one coaching. But they've got to be able to expect to see results. Otherwise they won't stay, and that is the biggest kind of piece to retaining your members is get them results, right? That seemed like an obvious thing to me. So when I set up the Dotties, I looked at, okay, how can we help people who are coming in to immediately self-identify where they are in business and give them a plan so that they're not just running into this portal and being like, holy mother of God, there are about 50,000 things in here. Instead, they're going to the portal and they've got a clear plan of action. And so the thing that we did was we implemented a quiz to help people understand what would be the most beneficial resources for them to use in the portal and the most beneficial sections for them to focus on immediately. The other thing that we did was set up the membership site so that it drip-fed content and it was action-based. So the more content you complete, the more you get access to. When you join the Dotties, you don't get access to everything immediately. You get it as you do the work. And that solves two problems. One, it solves the problem of people are buying the membership and they're never using it because, it's just one of those things that sits on their PayPal account for about 50 years. And two, when they take action, they get results. And hey, guess what? When you're getting results from something, you don't want to leave. Okay. So it was a twofold process. The second thing that I thought about when we were talking, when I was talking about the membership site and setting it up with my friends and with Sam and, basically anyone that I could bore to death about when my business is going to go next, was about support, looking at the level of support that they were going to get. Now, for the Dotties, I was, my big thing was I wanted it to reward people who were prepared to work really hard, but who perhaps couldn't make the financial investment in my one-to-one coaching or in those services, but who were self-motivated enough and action-taking enough, sounds like all the buzzwords, doesn't it, to actually do the work themselves, and have a level of support from me that would make their lives easier. So, I decided to implement things that were manageable for me, but also would help give that extra personal feel to the membership in a structured way and give people the best opportunity to win, give them the best opportunity to be supported, both by myself, because I was the one who started the membership and that's kind of why they bought it, right? People buy from people, but also from the community as a whole. It was really important for me that the community grew and became somewhere super supportive and not cliquey, right? One of the things I found that, again, ground my gears when I went into other memberships was that you kind of went in, nobody knew that you were new. You felt like you couldn't really talk to anyone. It all felt a little bit awkward and cliquey, unless you went out there and introduced yourself. And then it was a bit like, oh God, I'm the new kid at school. And the other thing I found was that the people running the memberships didn't know who their members were. And that really irritated me. And I mean, if you've got 500 people in a membership, yes, okay, do you know what? It's going to be tough to remember all of their names or what they do. But I mean, I've run a free Facebook group for 2.5 years, and that's got over 2,000 people in it. And I know every single time somebody who's new arrives on a live stream, because I haven't engaged with them before, I'll know it's their first live stream. I'll tell them then and there. So I don't think it's that difficult when somebody's paying you each month to just remember their name and just remember a little bit about them at least. Okay. So when I started the Dotties and I thought about the type of support I wanted to give, there was an element of me that wanted to provide some one-to-one support. And again, if you have a membership, you don't have to run it like this. You can absolutely choose to run your support differently. But for me, I wanted to add an element of one-to-one because I don't do it anymore. So actually it's sometimes quite good fun for me. And so I added in quarterly one-to-one laser coaching calls for every member of the Dotties. Okay, so everyone who joins the Dotties, once a quarter, they get a 15-minute laser session with me where we power through their biggest problem at that time. And during these sessions, people have, created entire LinkedIn strategies. We've gone through sales strategies for new launches. We've helped coach them out of being stuck and overwhelmed and into action. We've looked at lots of different things. It's not about the time you spend on the phone. It's about, having a clear process that works, so that when you get them on the phone, you know what it is that you're going to be covering, you know how the session is going to run, you're aware enough of people's businesses that you can give and deliver helpful and useful information. And actually having that touch point every quarter is, again, really nice way of getting to know everyone in your membership, making them feel valued. The other thing that we do in terms of the Dotties with support is we look at community support, things like accountability threads, accountability buddies, guest expert sessions, bringing people into the membership who know more about different subject areas than I do. Lots of different things that just make it a bit more interesting and a bit more engaged. And we also have things like weekly Q&As, so weekly live Q&As, monthly hot seats, where people can just come and get their questions answered. So, in terms of support from me and the guest experts and my team running it, there's a lot of support. But also in terms of the community itself, when people join, we introduce new people to the group. We put up a thread that welcomes them. We have what we call the Dottie welcome train, where everyone welcomes the new member so that it doesn't feel cliquey or awkward or, oh God, I don't know anyone and I'm not part of the cool kids. It's something that is different and that genuinely makes a difference to the community, makes people feel immediately at home, supported. And yes, sometimes a little bit overwhelmed, right? We like to go hell for leather on these welcome trains and everyone submits gifts and memes and it's great. But think about, in terms of your members, if you are setting up a membership site, what support will there be for them? Is it going to be high touch support, which is the Dotties? Is it going to have a mod like that? They're going to have some kind of access to you? Will you be running hot seats, Q&As, that kind of thing? Or is it going to be more low touch support and therefore a lower ticket offer? Okay, is it going to be something where actually you're going to be in the group answering questions, but perhaps you're not going to get on the phone with them every quarter, or perhaps you're not going to run tons of weekly Q&As, or, perhaps you're not going to put a team in place for customer experience and answering some of the questions and things like that. So just think about how you want to support your members and what's the best way to support them so they get a lot out of the membership and that they want to stay, because again, retention is key, right? The next thing that I thought about with the Dotties was about content. And, again, when I'd been on this kind of membership binge, I'd been in tons of memberships and the majority of the content was very, very good. Okay, the majority of the content, once you actually went in and looked at what the content was and, did the stuff, it was very, very good content. The downside to that content was that there was tons of it and it wasn't streamlined. And again, didn't know where to start. Okay. The other side of it was that people had tried to cover everything. And that for me was really scary. I was like, oh God, I cannot in my membership cover absolutely everything that there is to know about every single business topic. I'm not confident to talk about accounting or legal or, any of the serious business topics. And instead, I developed this key focus for the Dotties around the foundational business skills that you need to have, so sales strategies, marketing strategies, branding and visibility, all developed around my core beliefs and pillars in business that have helped me become successful, and I was like, right, okay, that's going to be the content. So make sure that when you're putting your content together, A, it's streamlined, B, it doesn't need to cover everything, and see that it's not overwhelming, that there is a clear plan for people in terms of completing the content, and that it isn't just hours and hours and hours worth of theory-based content that they can't do anything with. And then finally, I looked at results. And this was the thing that really honestly put me off a membership more than anything else that really concerned me about setting up a membership. The amount of people who were actually winning from memberships, who were getting key results from memberships, was low. And the results they were getting were not great. And I was like, oh, that bothers me. Okay, we talked earlier about the success rate of my clients in the industry, and these are people who are in masterminds, in group programs, in hybrid programs, in automated programs, in one-to-one work. And I really didn't want to put a membership site in place that didn't get people the same sort of results. And so for me, it was about looking at how can I make sure that if the right person, so an action taker, somebody who is genuinely motivated, somebody who genuinely wants to be successful, somebody who is not afraid of hard work, somebody who's ready to use the community for support, who's ready to ask me questions in the group and all that kind of stuff and be accountable. If that person lands in the group, how can we get them results? How can we make sure that they stay accountable? How can we make it so that they find things easy to implement? How can we make it so that they are accountable to their goals and that they're held accountable by the community and by me, without me necessarily having to send everybody an email every month being like, hey, have you done this work yet? Because that equally doesn't work. And so some of the things that we put in to help people stay accountable, to help people implement, were things like results-based learning, or incentive-based learning, as I like to call it. And that's basically every month we vote for the dottie of the month, the person who's taken the most action, who's worked really, really hard, who we've all seen, celebrate wins, potentially, share obstacles, share the crap sides of business building and what they're going through, but who's tried really hard, who's been consistent with taking action, who's really shown up for themselves and their business, and who's been a great member of the community as well. And they're rewarded every month with a prize. So last month's prize was a ticket to an exclusive PR event in London to go and learn about their PR. And the prizes, depending on who wins, are UK-based, US-based, international, whatever. But it's just that little incentive and that bit of recognition from the community that you are the person who's worked the hardest. And that's actually worked really, really well. The other thing that we implemented were things like accountability emails. So each week there are accountability emails that go out to the dotties. Each week there are accountability threads. We have accountability buddy sessions. We have specific virtual working spaces for dotties to make life as easy as possible and to help people implement as much as possible. So, when you're thinking about how your client's going to get results, even in a membership, even where they have to be self-motivated, really think about how that's going to happen for them, and how you can make that as fun, as actionable, as easy as possible. Okay. Now, the other thing to say is that we can tell that this works. In the dotties, when we're looking at it, there are people who've gone from having never had a client before to booking, 4 or 5 clients in a week. We've had people who have been really introverted, really quite nervous and shy about setting up their own business, who've become speakers, who've landed massive speaking opportunities. We've had people who have, gone from making, a couple of grand a month to making 5K and above consistently. And that is down to how committed we all are in the community to getting results, both for ourselves and for everybody else, and the things and the tools that we've put in place to make everything actionable and implementable. So if you are considering, having a membership site, really, really do think about what are the results, what are the key deliverables that your membership site is going to have, and how are people going to be able to achieve that. And then finally, retention. Retention is a funny one because, and again, one of the biggest things that kind of scared me about setting up a membership site was, right, so I'm going to have this membership site, hopefully people don't leave, awkward, what if they do? Retention is a big deal, okay? And generally what will happen with your membership site is that every 3 months you'll have about a 10% turnover. So if your membership site is small, it's going to be noticeable. If your membership site is large, it's going to be more noticeable. Either way, you're not going to be able to get away from the fact that people do leave. Now, in the Dotties, we have a plus, like an over 80% retention rate. And when I say over 80%, it doesn't mean that people who stayed forever. We base that on somebody being in the Dotties for more than 12 months. But we have an over 80% retention rate. And there are key reasons for that. So one is that content is always updated. It's made accessible. We do regular polling to find out what members want, and we keep it interesting. Two, the community is really solid, really strong, and actually people stay for community, for the advice that they're going to get, for the visibility opportunities that we provide in there, and for, honestly, just the ability to show up in a space and be who they are without having to be their client-facing self. And then three, obviously the results. Retention and having solid retention in your business model, whether it's a membership site or coaching in general, is about, are your clients getting results at every single stage with you? If they're not going to keep buying from you. Okay, people and consumers specifically are not stupid. And so that means that, yes, in a membership site, you can absolve yourself of some of the responsibility. If you have people in there who've never opened the portal, never asked a question, never taken any action, then yeah, they're probably not going to get great results and they are going to leave, and you don't have to feel too bad about that. However, the flip side to that is that people will not keep paying you if they're not seeing some kind of win. So again, that results path is really, really important for you and for your clients in terms of their wins, which determine your wins and how long somebody's staying in the membership for. So let's just quickly recap what we've covered today, because I'm aware that it's been a super long episode. I feel really bad. I'm sorry, Scott, that you've got to edit all this, but it's a really, really important one. Firstly, we talked about, is recurring revenue for you? Do you really want a membership, or is there something else that actually would float your boat when it comes to generating recurring income in your business? The second thing we looked at was making a path for your members to follow. Is it easy to make their way through your membership? Are they going to be able to self-identify where they are and what they need next? Then we looked at support and what kind of level of support that you're prepared to give to your membership and what your community is going to provide. We looked at content, how to keep content streamlined, and what kind of content is going to be best to provide, i.e. not everything. And then finally, we looked at results and retention. So how are people in your membership actually going to win? What kind of wins are they going to have? And then finally, how are you going to retain them? What is your plan for retention? How are you going to make them take enough action that they get results and that they want to stay forever? Hopefully you've enjoyed the episode. If you found it useful, I would love to hear what your key takeaways are. So feel free to head over to the Facebook group, my free Facebook community, the Smart Leader Sales Society. Share your key wins. Tell me, are you going to have a membership, or are you going to go jazzy and have a different kind of recurring revenue model? And obviously, if you have enjoyed today's episode, one of the things I really would appreciate is the time that you take to leave a review. It doesn't seem like a lot to you, but actually leaving a review is something that's really, really important to me, because A, it tells me how you're getting on, if you're enjoying the podcast, any feedback that you have. But also it's kind of important in terms of, iTunes. iTunes loves a review. And when you give us reviews, it means that it pushes us up the charts, and that we can get other people who are potentially interested in sales, learning about sales strategies, to have access to the podcast. And that's something that's really, really good too. And then obviously, if you've heard all about the Dotties today and you're thinking, Jess, that sounds like the shiz, I need to join, you can head over. I will give the link to Scott. You can head over and check out the sales page for the Dotties and see whether it's something you potentially want to get involved with and get all up in my sales grill. If not, I will see you in the next episode, where I'm bringing another amazing entrepreneur, genuinely amazing. And we're going to be talking through their sales question, giving some live coaching, all on Friday afternoon. So I will see you on Friday.